Hello and welcome back to Act 3 of our Zariel Sailbait run. This is an infernal paladin capable of dealing absurd amounts of damage. We have dealt 260 damage in one hit in our last video covering Act 1 and 2, and this one we're gonna go way over 400 damage in one hit. And of course, as per usual, all without any mods. You can go into your own game right now, copy what I'm doing and see about the same results. And to make that much easier for you, I'm gonna upload a detailed build guide tomorrow, so you can just copy what I'm doing and build your own hellish nuke. This video, I'm gonna cover all the most fun Act 3 fights, show you plenty of insanely high damage numbers, and of course, there will also be plenty of one-shots of all your favorite Act 3 bosses. I do hope you're gonna enjoy this one. I had so much fun recording it, seeing all those big numbers, and enjoy the video. As per usual, I will comment on all the fights and explain what's going on, but if you still have questions left over, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I will answer all of them to the best of my ability. And also, I put a lot of work into these videos, hours upon hours of build crafting and recording, so if you could consider liking and subscribing, it would mean the world to me. Now our first real fight is Ansur the Undead Dragon, and he has three main issues which make him pretty tough to deal with on this build. First of all, he reduces all damage he takes by -4. This is a big issue because our damage is split into many instances of damage, which are all individually reduced by -4, resulting in a reduction closer to 24 instead of just 4. The second issue is that he is immune to the wet effect, which, if you recall, is the main way we were applying fire resistance in Act 1 and 2. We need fire resistance to then in turn be able to apply arsonist oil for vulnerability. So we have to find a solution for that as well. Lastly, he has a legendary reaction allowing him to use his lightning breath on us, and his lightning breath, if we fail the save, will shock us. Why is this bad? Well, because shock makes us unable to take reactions. And Luck of the Far Realms, the guaranteed crit, is a reaction. So we cannot have him shock us, or else our guaranteed crit will be gone. So to circumvent this issue, we will use Mind Blast to stun him, making him unable to shock us. Now Mind Blast scales off our spell save DC, which luckily for us is already pretty high since we have 20 charisma, but we also stack Arcane Acuity before the fight, so we have an even higher one, because he has legendary resistance, allowing him to add +10 to his saving throw, so we need to make sure this lands. Now you see me do a bunch of weird stuff here, and let me explain. First of all, I throw an elixir of fire resistance at him, which you probably already guessed is to make him resistant to fire, so in turn we are able to apply arsonist oil. Before the fight, I coated my bow in said arsonist oil, so this shot will apply it to him. This shot also creates a cloud of darkness around him, allowing us to gain the benefit from our shadow cloaked ring, which deals extra damage against obscured enemies. Lastly, we throw an elixir of poison resistance to override the fire resistance one, resulting in full vulnerability from the arsonist oil. Since we got proned here, we lose half of our movement speed, which is quite a bad thing, because we do need all of our movement speed to get away from him, because as soon as we obliterate him, he will go into the air and charge his super nuke, so we have to be ready for that. And now finally, after all of this setup, we are ready to unleash our barrage of hellish carnage. This guy is going to get obliterated. And yes, he reduces all of our damage by around 24, but it will not matter. But just so we don't get in trouble, I'm gonna drop a tactical healing potion here, because he will trigger his reaction. after a bit of consideration, I use my final action to dash away and hide as far away as possible. Because not only is he about to unleash his Nova, but we are also about to go lethargic. So not only do we have to be somewhere safe, but we also have to survive one turn without being able to do anything. Luckily, I drank an elixir of universal resistance before this fight, which allows us to cancel out the wet effect, which would make us vulnerable to cold and lightning damage, which would spell certain death for us in this situation. This allows us to just finish Ansur off easily. Ansur indeed. On this setup, we aren't even oriented for the maximum amount of damage because we wanted to cast 2 Searing Smites. And he also reduces all damage, but you can see just how absurdly high these numbers become. It is insane what this build is capable of.
How much further can I go?
Next up is Cazador, and for him I use a very niche but very effective strategy, which is, as you may know, Daylight. Now Daylight you can just enchant any item with, and even if you respec from the class that has the spell, you still keep the item effect, which essentially makes it available on any build. So if you ever fight Cazador, do this and you will have a much easier time. Now we are doing this not for the 20 damage per turn, that is negligible, we don't need that. We need it so he can't go into his cloud form. His cloud form would make him resistant to fire, which doesn't totally kill our build because we can just bypass resistance, but it does make us unable to make him vulnerable to fire, which is what we are after. We want those very high numbers, and that's why I use Daylight here to prevent him from preventing us. For the sake of consistency, we still use the elixir way to apply vulnerability, just because I wanted to switch it up from the first 2 acts, but using wet here would also be totally viable.
No time for mercy.
Now the rest are very easily dealt with. All we need is a well placed wall of fire and a few fireballs for good measure. But one question I do have, even though I cut this down, I always keep in these segments where I kill a bunch of these trash mobs while the main event is already dead. Do you prefer it if I keep it this way, like add more of the combat, or should I cut more of the stuff out? I really do appreciate any input and I still try to learn at all times, so let me know what you think about this.
Best be on my way. Nothing hurts.
Of course, we make sure that Cazador actually dies, and we also break his staff so all the prisoners are forever in the cages. Next up is the not so handsome Gortash, and we immediately tell him that we killed Orin and send him upstairs. First thing we do when we go upstairs is disable this specific machine. This is the one that gives him the mid-combat buff of Shell of Resistance, which would make him resistant to most damage. If we disable this one, instead he will receive the worse version of it, that makes him vulnerable instead. And not only does that make him vulnerable to fire damage, but also radiant damage, setting us up for the perfect kill. Now we open up the fight by casting Hold Person on all the most critical enemies. The reason why we do this is because our initiative is pretty low and getting the surprise round on them is not always consistent, and I do not want them to get a turn before me. That would be devastating for me. So that's why we go extra safe with this one, even though in the end it does not matter at all. Now I'm very sorry to make you watch this, but for some reason my PC just decided to not work while the Steel Watchers had their turn. I've never experienced lag so bad so suddenly. The entire run was clear and then all of a sudden this happens. Like I explained earlier, since we destroyed his working machine, he got the buff or debuff from the dysfunctioning, which means he is now vulnerable to all elemental damage, which is just perfect for us. I like how he did try to go into his Avatar of Bane form. If you paid attention, you might have heard the sound cue for it, but he just couldn't go to it because he just got obliterated. I don't know, maybe that's just funny to me. Now, since we do not need to kill any of these guys, and I'm quite frankly scared for my life, having tanked every single Steel Watcher shot somehow, I just head out of there. There's no reason for me to stay here, and I would probably die if I stayed right there. I could have probably healed up and like hit somewhere else and then continued the fight, but there's really no point. Also very odd that the cutscene still played inside. I guess I picked this thing up inside, but still I was way outside when this played.
Nether stones. That's wrong. Quick.
A marvel pool beneath this. You are right. Finish.
Alright, and now for some viewer requested fights. These are fights specifically requested by you guys, and I always ask in either the videos or posts what fights you would want to see me do on my future builds. And if you have a fight that it's maybe your favorite fight, let me know. I always include every request, and I do not mind mixing it up between videos. Actually, that's my goal with this, so if you have any fights that you want to see, comment down below. Now, you might have seen me use the spell Flesh to Stone on Lorroakan there, and I did not do that randomly, just for fun. I did it because I wanted to test something. I thought, or like an idea I had was that the Flesh to Stone Petrified debuff would override his immunity to fire. If this would have worked, I also would have killed Raphael on this run, but it was the only way I could think of to possibly bypass fire immunity, and since this didn't work, I just gave up on it and didn't fight Raphael. If there is any way that you know of to bypass specifically fire immunity, do let me know. I would love to know. Yeah. But this fight I used mainly as a test for that. And dealing with the fire immune Myrmidon is pretty simple. I just cast a Cloud of Daggers on the turn that he goes lethargic, so he takes the maximum amount of damage, and without him, Lorroakan is also not immune anymore.
Made me your enemy.
And since Lorroakan at this point is literally just a statue, it's not a big deal to kill him. You might think that using Flesh to Stone on him before combat is kind of a cheese, and I do agree to a certain extent, but he is really not that big of a threat. The only thing that is strong about him is his reaction, but if you just don't attack him until the Myrmidons are dead, it's kind of pointless. So he just casts Cone of Cold once on you and then about it. And lastly, another one requested by you guys specifically is Mr. Carrion. And of course, he is vulnerable to fire even without me doing anything, so he's a no-brainer to fight on this one. And of course, just to add emotional damage, I have to flex on him by dropping his organs right in front of him.
Unless, of course, you are looking.
But to actually blow up the organs, I go upstairs, just so I don't lose the surprise round on him, which is important, in theory at least, to one-shot him, but you'll see that that doesn't really go to plan. Yep, idiot me forgot that Luck of the Far Realms only works while within combat, and since I set up my Divine Smite to only apply on crit, and Crater Flash also only applies on crit, this hit looks fabulously weak. I'm also sad about it, but what can you do? I just went with it. I still deal a bunch of fire damage, and all of these guys are vulnerable to it, so it's not that big of a deal. And I think we've seen plenty of pretty big hits today.
Father, are you watching?
Also, I recorded this fight at 4 AM, and looking back on it, I think it's so funny that I just ran away from all of these guys, scared for my life, while all of them, or basically all of them, were still surprised. I guess I just didn't see it. Yes, I just missed with advantage on 99%. I guess that's karma for the critical hit I got in the first part of this against the Kithrak Therazin, where I had disadvantage. It's the exact same odds, so I guess it's just fair. Since I'm about to go lethargic for 2 turns, one from the Terrazul and one from the haste, I do have to make sure I'm kinda safe here, but the Wall of Fire should deal with most of them. But yeah, that's about it for today's video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I would say like and subscribe so you don't miss the build guide, but I already said it's out tomorrow, so it's kind of pointless to say that. You can still subscribe though, I do this kind of content all the time and I would really appreciate it, I guess. Anyway, yeah, I had a bunch of fun recording this, and I would do similar builds in the future, maybe with different elements, obviously using also different classes, and maybe I will eventually do a build where I try to get the highest damage hit possible. That could be fun as well, just combining all my knowledge of builds. Anyway, that's just stuff for the future. For today, I do hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.